Welcome everybody to the first summer sessions organised by the Tutors Association. This morning we've got Heather Harries who will be presenting for us on the tutoring landscape in Dubai. Thank you, Heather, for joining us.
That's okay, it's a pleasure. Thank you so much for inviting me. So basically, I just thought we'd do a whistle-stop tour on what it's like, how tutoring in Dubai, how we set up, what you can do to break into the market now. It's a great market to be in. For those of you who are very good at geography, you'll realise, I've just realised I put a placeholder picture at the beginning and it's not Dubai. So just go with it. We'll work out who it was afterwards. So Dubai is, it's vibrant, it's expanding, everything you hear, everyone is moving here. And to be honest, right at the moment, Dubai feels like that. It's absolutely packed. So I'm just going to explain who I am, just so you know my background. I lived and worked in the UK until about 20 years ago, and I ended up moving out to Dubai. My husband got a job here. But because I worked with Prince Charles back home in the UK, the ruler, when I arrived, sort of said, did I want to come and work for him? So I spent 11 years working with the ruler, which was great fun, and I got some really good contacts while I was doing that. About 10 years ago, they brought in this new law where they said where expats weren't allowed to be at senior government positions. So I was given the opportunity to drop my position or to leave. And I must admit, I took the opportunity to leave. I'd already made a lot of contacts and I set up an education company. Roll on a few years and COVID hit, so we closed our physical training centre and we moved online. And online tutoring, I have to say, I'd always pushed back against it, but it's been an incredible opportunity. So just to kind of pull in a little bit about Dubai, so going back a little bit, so we already had a reputation before we went online, which in Dubai is really important. It's like a word of mouth kind of sort of area. Now, for those of you who don't know anything about Dubai, I have to just say that at the moment the temperatures are touching about 50 degrees and everybody is literally shipping out. So what we know about this, I can tell you about this region straight off, is that it's very, very seasonal. So I guess UK is seasonal, but Dubai is exceptionally seasonal insofar as there is like nobody left here. So online works because when they go back to the UK or they travel to wherever they're going to travel, you can still keep the teaching going. So just in case you didn't know, and I always assume that people do know, Dubai has got, it's got 7, so Dubai is one of 7 emirates that make up the United Arab Emirates. Abu Dhabi is obviously the capital. Dubai is the 3rd biggest, Sharjah is the biggest. Now, in terms of financial or in terms of economic markets, really the only 2 that would be of any interest at the moment is Abu Dhabi or Dubai. Abu Dhabi is bizarrely much less developed than Dubai. So in terms of schools, in terms of education, it's a far different market. And we've struggled for many years to actually nail Abu Dhabi. We've nailed Dubai, but Abu Dhabi is more, it's quite strictly regulated. The schools are different in their nature and the people that live there are very different in their nature. It's very much, it's sort of, I guess, less, they need less support. They're much more independent in Abu Dhabi than they are in Dubai. So just some general statistics. Now, this one's very interesting, and I've just pulled this up. This is November 2022, and we had 216 private schools and 326,000 students studying 17 curricula. Now, this is 2022, and I mentioned about the growth in Dubai recently, and I just want to emphasize that growth. So if we look at these enrollments here, sort of even 2020, it was 284,000. Now, this year, we're sitting at 365,000, just to give you an idea of that growth. And in terms of schools, getting children to school here is becoming a massive challenge. They are full. Now, what has happened is that 5 new schools have opened. Of those, 2 were a British curriculum, but we need more. So what we can see this year is that we've got 220 schools, still 17 curricula available. Obviously, UK is currently the biggest, and we've currently got over 132,000 students studying within the UK curricula. We've also got the UK IB, and we've got IB, which are increasingly becoming very popular here. And a lot of schools, because of the nature of the student in Dubai, they're obviously going to travel. They could be traveling anywhere around the world. IB is more transferable for them from here into sort of the American or the Australian markets, it would seem. So we do have massive growth, but massive potential for more. I think they're saying they're expecting something like 100,000 new families to join us in September this year. So yeah, it's already packed. It's going to be even more packed. So this is statistics from KHDA, and what they're saying is that this year was the first time they've had double-digit growth within their enrollment and they're expecting that to continue. So looking at the schools here, the schools are generally pretty large. Between 1,000 to 3,000 students in each school. Now, although that's not dissimilar to what we might find elsewhere, what is dissimilar is that you're paying for that education. The class sizes are approximately 24 students. Now, 24 students who speak the same language is very different game to 24 students who are from 17, 18, I think in some schools they're talking about 30 different nationalities. And as you go up the schools, less classroom assistants. Now the schools are, although there's so many of them and although they're full, they are commercial, very commercial. We only have, I think we've got one not-for-profit school left here. And it's all about, how many can we pack in, and what can we do? So we can reduce classroom assistants, we can reduce SEN, we can reduce this. But now what that means is that students are not necessarily reaching their full potential. So that's where the tutoring opportunity comes in. And what we find is that teachers are so thinly stretched. They're teaching to the middle cohort, ignoring the bottom cohort, ignoring the top cohort. So that sort of tutoring need is really across the whole spectrum of the students. Now, GCSEs and A-levels are predominantly Edexcel or AQA. There's a few Cambridge boards creeping in, but nothing that we don't teach in the UK. A number of schools, as I mentioned, are transferring to IB for the sixth form. And private schools, just to give you an idea, they range from about £10,000 up to about £25,000 a year. So generally here, parents have a high disposable income. The sort of psyche of parents here is, we've got a problem, throw money at it. They really aren't into solving problems themselves. They've become very lazy. They bought into that very luxury, high net worth type lifestyle. Now, there are obviously some normal families, but they're far less common than the throw money at it sort of problem solvers. There's two main types of students that as tutors here you'd want to look at. There's the UK students that are traditional British families, and they go to a British school here, totally normal, nothing out of the ordinary. Now, what happens with these UK students is that parents live in fear that their students are falling behind what's happening in the UK. They've come out for jobs, they've come out for work, but they're very aware they don't want their children to be penalised for their choices. And they tend to throw money at tutoring just to be reassured that their students are of that right level. But keep in mind that, classes are large. The culture of hard work is definitely not, there's no competitive culture here. And students expect everything to be hand-fed and to some extent done for them. Now, I'm speaking from a position of strength. I've got 3 kids that have all been through school here, so don't think I'm, and I can see there's no competitive edge. They've missed that, the students from UAE, and it's always quite a shock for them when they do finally go back. The non-UK students are the other market, very key market. Now, what happens is a lot of families move in from, countries like Morocco, Iran, Iraq, Uzbekistan, Russia, China, and the parents want their students to have a UK curriculum, but they're not familiar with the UK curriculum themselves. So that the parents need a lot of support. And the children need quite a lot of support because they don't have the language skills to fully access the curriculum to the depth they need to get the results that their parents are looking for. And students, because they're struggling with the language, they're needing that extra support. On the other side of that is they've moved in or moved through a few curriculums. There's a great, the parents here, you know, there's kind of, oh, my best friends just moved to this school, and they don't have an awareness of curriculum, so they quite often jump from Indian to IB to UK, back to Indian, back to UK, because they know they want to do GCSEs. But of course, you know, a lot of that education journey has been very, very fragmented. Now, the schools themselves, I would say, are in two very distinct categories. So we've got premium schools, and in premium schools, I would definitely say the students are well taught, but the thing to remember is that our contact time is very much lower than the contact time within the UK. So, you know, if you think we're 30 weeks and our schools break up, our schools are all breaking up this week. We also lost, and don't laugh at this, we lost 2 weeks of schooling this year because of rain. So we literally closed down. There was no schooling. You know, it's rained. We have to shut. And that was 14 days that we didn't expect just before the exams. And then the Eid holiday that would normally have been 2 days, because of all the rain, and you know, the ruler decided to give us 10 days off for Eid holiday. So that came out of the school term time. So the GCSE and A-level students, you know, they probably only got about 28 weeks teaching this year, which when you're trying to get through that massive curriculum, you know, it's quite hard. So contact time is a lot shorter, the days are shorter, and over and above that, you know, over and above the fact that we've got less hours in the day, we're now trying to fit in Islamic studies and Arabic. So they've got to have, by law, they've got to have 5 hours of Islamic and Arabic studies on top of their timetable. Now that means that the curriculum becomes very rushed. Because of the transient nature of the country, there's always a change of teachers in the middle of the year. So that again means that the story, that those exam years, they're always going to be slightly disaggregated. There's always going to be problems with them. And the nature of the beast, if you've got children in premium schools, they've almost always got high disposable income. And generally, the answer is, let's throw money at the problem and let's just get tutors in, because as a parent, I don't want to be doing this. I have a better life than that. And don't forget, a lot of the school fees are paid by companies. So it's not that it's parents are feeling it in their pockets. And some companies pay the tutoring fees as well. So that's, you know, that's always worth bearing in mind. Now, the lower end schools, and there are quite a few of those creeping in. GEMS is obviously a well-known brand, and they've got some very much cheaper schools for parents who are paying school fees themselves. But these classes tend to be very much larger, and we're talking about 32 plus children in a class. They're hiring in cheaper teachers who may or may not be experienced with the curriculum and may or may not have taught A-level or GCSE before. But these parents do tend to have less available income. So the output of the students tends to be lower. But it also means that, you know, there's two distinct tutoring markets here. There's the premium market and there's the lower end market. Now, within the lower end market of tutoring, we see a lot of other nationalities teaching, and perhaps the output is not to the standard that you would want it to be. Within the premium, the parents would only accept British teachers. So let me move on. If anyone's got any questions, by the way, just do stick your hands up, because I am rattling through this. I know I am. So how do we build up, if you wanted to come here, how do you build up that market? And I'm kind of assuming that that's what you would want to know, which is why you're joining. So it is regulated. It's like everything out here, everything's done in a very strange way. So if within Dubai, you've got the KHDA, which is the Knowledge Human Resources Development Authority, and they're responsible for regulating and licensing any training or education companies that are based in Dubai. Recently, and schools come under that as well, and they're heavily or they were, I should say, inspected. This year, they've suddenly decided, for no apparent reason, there's been an announcement there'll be no school inspections next week. But let's see, they might change their mind by September. The Ministry of Education is the government, the overall. So bearing in mind, as I said before, we're 7 emirates, which means that we've got some rules are federal, which means they cover 7 emirates, and some are unique to the individual emirate. So we've got, within Dubai, KHDA is obviously unique to Dubai, and then Ministry of Education is a federal law, and they've just, without any any compliance or any kind of sort of discussion with any other authority, they suddenly announced this year that there was a new tutoring license. Up until then, tutoring had been entirely illegal, wasn't allowed at all. Suddenly, the new license has come online, and it seemed like anyone from the age of 16 to about 106 can apply for it, irrespective of their qualifications, and they're now allowed to tutor. So in-person tutoring is now allowed with this license, and online is apparently covered by the license. So one of the things, if you're going to online tutoring, you're supposed to have this license. Now, if you're outside the UAE, I am not sure that you could ever actually apply for it. And I'm not sure that even if you don't have it, I'm not sure that you'd have any problem, anyone would worry about it, because I'm not sure how they would monitor it. Anyway, like everything else, it's now in place, and it's just an awareness. Anyone else who's so I'm going to go on to, so those are the kind of key regulations for tutoring. You would just need to be aware. But as I say, if you're online and you're outside the UAE, I'm not entirely sure that anyone would bother anyway. Now, if you want to set up an education company within the UAE, and a lot of people do want to move here, and it does seem like a great idea, to do that, you have to register with an economic zone. Now, that could be Dubai in its entirety, it could be a free zone, it could be one of the other Emirates, but you have to be registered with the government of one of the enterprise areas. And for that, you would have to buy a trading license. Now, your trading license is about 21,000 dirhams, which is around £5,000, I'm guessing, sort of £4,000 to £5,000. If you decide to register if you decide to set your tutoring company up in Dubai, you would then need to register with KHDA, which is a further £4,000. And then if you want to work in there, you have to have your own visa. So you're paying another £5,500, £6,000, sorry, £1,500 for your visa, which enables you to work in this country. If you want to link a head office from the UK here, you can do it. It's slightly complicated because you have to have an overseas license. Now, I don't know the full details, and I know some companies that have done it, but I do know they kind of moan about the red tape for about 2 years afterwards, and they seem to be scarred by the whole impact of doing it. So you can do it. Now, over the last 3 years, they've brought in VAT. So we now have VAT here, which is 5%, which is liable on tutoring, but not on education. So you go and work that one out, because I still struggle. But basically, tutoring isn't education; it's a commercial activity. And this year, corporation tax has come in, and corporation tax is set at about 10% on all I think it's actually turnover over 300,000 dirhams. So that's, I don't know, £80,000, something like that. So that it's not easy. What I would say is that running a company here is far more difficult than you ever think it's going to be. And although lots of people moved out and everyone dreams of the sort of the Dubai Dubai lifestyle, setting a company up here is lots of red tape, and yeah, it can be pretty challenging even once you're set up. So the market itself, so there is a massive demand for UK trained teachers, without a doubt, and that will continue. We never have enough, and I know lots of new companies are setting up all the time, and I'm always seeing them on my Facebook feeds and whatever, but generally they don't last that long, I have to say, because it's a hard market to break into. The time difference, if you want to tutor from the UK, is 4 hours in the wintertime or 3 hours, obviously, in summertime. And throughout Dubai, there is the most amazing internet connection. Our communication network is absolutely fabulous. British qualifications are massive, and there's a great need for tutoring in British qualifications. The rates range from between £30 for the lower tutoring up to about £80 for the premium tutoring. And for A-levels, anything between 80 to 120. And we're hearing stories of upwards of about £250 for very key tutors. I'm unfortunately not in that market, but I'd love to be. Clients are deeply loyal, and once they start working with you, they will stay with you for their entire lifetime. And I say transient on there. the reason why I say that is what tends to happen, they will start with you here and they will move you to whatever country. So we've got from here, our clients, they've moved to Singapore, Hong Kong, Australia, Canada, Uzbekistan, Monaco, and they've stayed with us, which is lovely. And they're just deeply loyal. They just love, they just love taking what they know with them. But what I would say is that you will notice the difference with the parents here. The parents are really needy. You will spend most of your time counselling parents. They need lots of hand-holding, lots of reassurance all the time. And it can be sometimes a little bit exhausting. So if you have an hour lesson booked, you're going to spend 20 minutes at the end of each lesson talking to parents, which when you've got a back-to-back, it feels like it's wasted money. But build that into your costs because you know it's going to happen. So allow that 20 minutes within your costs. And remember, bartering and negotiation are everywhere. So whatever cost you give them, be prepared to come down on that because they will almost always, it's like, what's the discount? There's almost always a discount request. To break into the market, the best way would probably be to work with an existing tutoring company and build up your client base. Your earnings would or should be tax-free if they're paid obviously into foreign currency because you've earned them outside the country. But what I would say is that coming in on your own, getting traction in the market is challenging. Now, what's happened over the years is there's been an awful lot of tutors that are perhaps not qualified, just not particularly good or strong at what they're doing. So what tends to happen is parents are quite skeptical, they're quite worried about what they don't know. They always go with recommendations. So there's lots and lots of great Facebook groups out there. And if you're recommended, your client base will build. And I know that's standard everywhere, but here it almost is you won't book unless somebody recommends you. Now, there's a couple of reasons for that. And obviously for British parents, that multicultural language difficulty, where you might be phoning a company up and you don't know that you're going to be able to communicate with them effectively is really frustrating. So parents will always go, if somebody says, oh, I'll speak to Heather or speak to whoever, they will always come there because they know that it's already recommended and they know that it's a great way of just being able to do things simply. The market out here is really congested. A lot of illegal operators which aren't picked up. A lot of not so good operators, which is really kind of, if you like, affecting the reputation of tutoring generally. It's hard to break in and it's hard to communicate with target markets here. Everything is very, it's in little pockets. So, you're in the Indian market or the British market or the Safa school market, and it's very hard to get into other markets. Everyone stays in their little cliques. There's no one newspaper, there's no one TV, you're kind of down to advertising in shopping centres or through social media all the time. It's a very complicated marketing program to be on top of here. And you're highly dependent on word of mouth, on the mummy groups, on the school WhatsApp chats. I would say that perhaps the only way to communicate with this market is through WhatsApp. The SMS, nobody uses SMS. The only people who use SMS are the people who do the SMS advertising. So nobody ever reads SMS. So if you're not on WhatsApp, be on WhatsApp. And that brings me to another point. If you're on WhatsApp, make sure your profile picture is an appropriate profile picture because there's a lot of cultural sensitivities out here. So just be very aware that, your Facebook page is culturally sensitive and your profile picture on your WhatsApp is culturally sensitive. Payments, nobody carries cash. Everything is done by credit card. And though there's lots of online gateway options out there, make sure it's linked to Apple Pay or else people just can't be bothered. And the exchange rate is around 5 dirhams to a pound at the moment. And work on that as your basis because it fluctuates quite widely, particularly within the UK. And as I said before, in the summer, literally everyone ships out. So it becomes like this almost ghost town. And nobody, from about 2 weeks ago, nobody was even answering their phone. It's like, it's dead. Everyone is gone. Now, what I'm going to do is I just thought I'd tell you a few stories that, within tutoring here, it's certainly interesting. And I've got some absolutely amazing clients. Oligarchs, so you can imagine, the Russians have flocked to Dubai. It's like an easy way to spend their money. And I woke up when they were putting the sanctions on all the British and all the Russians a few years ago. I woke up to find 5 of my clients were on the top sanction list of BBC, and was kind of like, it's going to be interesting to get my fees out of them now. But you know, I got one particular client who I absolutely love, and I was with her, and she was 12 years old, and I said, and it was her birthday. I said, oh, what did you have for your birthday? And she went, oh, I got a yacht. Now, in my mind, I'm thinking, you know, laser dinghy, something you can sail in the harbour. No, she got something that was like, it was the biggest motor yacht in the world with 80 crew. And it was just kind of like, we're just on different levels. Or, you know, and another one, I was asked to go and teach one of the ruler's children. And, you know, if you just come in the main gate and you drive up to the giant tortoise enclosure and you turn left at the Jaguar pen and just park by the 2 Mercedes and then knock on the door, you'll be okay to come in. And it is, I have to say, it's been the most amazing insight into lives that I would never, ever have been able to look into before. So it is great fun. It's like the most amazing fun place to tutor, because you just meet so many different people. It's also one of the things I would say, it's also very common for a client to phone you up and they've got a 2-year-old and they want, you know, they want 2 hours a day, 5 days a week for a 2-year-old, so that they'll be okay when they start school. And, you know, you end up doing a lot of counselling that, you know, actually probably don't need it yet. You can come back to me, you know, or they'll come to you and they'll sort of say, right, okay, my 6-year-old needs 4 hours on a Saturday and 5 hours on a Sunday and 3 hours on a Monday, and you're looking at them saying, no, they just need 1 hour. So there's all of this sort of going on. But there's always this sort of need to feel like you're keeping up with the Joneses, and that, you know, whatever so-and-so is doing in the school playground, you know, they need to do as well. And I had one lady, I think she was having something like 22 hours a week tutoring with us, and she came and she said, I'm really struggling. How do I fit the Mandarin in? I went, you don't fit the Mandarin in. We reduce this, you know, and it's there's a lot of money and there's a lot of stupidity out here, and it's a lot of managing that as well. So yes. And then the one thing that I would say above all that keeps your clients is customer service. They are used to a very, very high level of customer service. So whatever you're doing, you need to be going above and beyond to really nail that customer service. So yeah, I mean, we've been going 10 years, and I would say we're probably I think we're one of the biggest tutoring companies in the Middle East now. And it's grown based around customer service and loyalty. So yeah, so what I'm going to do now is that's a whistle-stop tour on tutoring in Dubai. Hopefully some of it's useful. And what I thought perhaps we could just have a chat and you can ask me some questions. Is that okay?
Thank you, Heather. Yes. Does anybody, Anna? Oh, Anna, you're muted.
Can everyone hear me now?
Yes.
We can.
Yes. Hi. First of all, thank you so much, Heather. That was so informative. I was like, wow, I had like no clue all this was going on there. And I had always wondered how things are in that part of the world. So my question is, and maybe you have some information about this, is a bit about the type of subjects that people go for and when they need most help with. Now, I specialize in Latin and ancient Greek. I presume ancient Greek is very thin on the ground, unless you have British parents who want to continue with something they had started in the UK. But Latin might be more of a possibility. And I also have a hat as a Spanish tutor, which I'm not using at the moment, but I was wondering, is that something that calls a bit more of demand? I don't know if you could give me a bit of an overview on the subjects there, particularly for an IB where they take more subjects, so there's more of a chance that people will be taking a variety.
So in terms of Latin, I think in the 10 years we've had one inquiry for Latin. They do offer Latin at one of the schools in Dubai. So Dubai College is kind of, if you like, it's the top school, it's the selective school, and they offered Latin there for a while. I'm not sure whether they still do. Yeah, we don't get inquiries for Latin, I have to say, but Spanish is one of the main spoken languages. So within the languages they offer, it's Spanish or French. Most children choose Spanish because they'll have done French in primary and they've been put off. They've just like, I'm not doing French anymore, I want to do the Spanish. And Spanish so the Spanish both for GCSE, A-level and IB, really, really popular. We can't get enough Spanish teachers. We're always just putting them out, and there's a load of different reasons. The teacher, and I'm sounding like I'm being terribly frivolous about the teachers out here, but the teachers tend to come here for 2 years. They do what I call palm tree teaching, and it's quite hard work, and it means that there's not necessarily, and that sounds like a very broad brush. There's a lot of very, very good teachers, but there's also a large number that are very palm tree teachers. They party and they brunch at the weekends, and they're not quite as dedicated as they could be. So things like Spanish, where there's a lot of extra work goes into doing Spanish lessons. Yes, there's a great need for it, basically.
That's great to hear. Do you have an idea of the examining boards that dominate the schools there?
Yes, so it would be Edexcel and AQA, and we've got it basically between both. We have a number of, I think it's Edexcel exam board markers that work with us at the moment, and they are fully booked. So yeah, I would say it's almost definitely between them. And the other thing to be aware is that there's a lot of the schools do the IGCSE here. So just be aware there's a subtle difference between GCSE and IGCSE, obviously.
I was wondering, I do marking for Cambridge International, so I was wondering if Cambridge International is also for A-level a possibility, or is it less popular?
It's less popular. There are a few schools doing it. So I've noticed Cambridge International's come through for geography recently, but I haven't seen it for languages, and I've seen it for a couple of the sciences, but I haven't seen it on languages yet.
Thank you very much. That was very helpful.
Okay. Anyone else?
Michaela?
Hello, can you hear me?
I can, Michaela.
Thank you, Heather, for that presentation. It was really enlightening and helpful. My question is also similar in its subject related. So my subjects are English, which I know could be a popular one to tutor, but also RE. And I know that British RE generally isn't taught in the Middle East. I think I only know of one school in Bahrain maybe, but I've heard of something called moral education, and I know they study Islamic studies. So I don't know if you can enlighten me on that. I don't know if it's assessed at all.
Yeah, okay. So you wouldn't do moral education is one of those subjects that the teachers kind of, if they pick the short straw when they get moral education, they absolutely hate it. And it's not assessed. So it's one it's like a voluntary thing that they do to tick a KHDA, a ministry box, basically. The students have to pass it, and I do not yet know a student who hasn't passed it. My daughter sat and ate ice cream through her entire moral education lessons, and she still passed with an A. So I can honestly say with no effort they passed. They don't do RE generally, but we do get a number of students that come through who were perhaps changed mid-curriculum, that were doing an RE in the UK. Their parents have moved for work and they've had to pick it up. And those we almost always service online through tutoring, because it's the only thing we can do. Obviously, we have what we call tolerance out here. So if the schools wanted to do RE, they would be allowed to do it. But I think they just choose not to because it becomes more complicated. But online, there's definitely a need, particularly for students that have changed, because I think, RE is quite well taught in the UK. And then for English is massive. And English Edexcel, IGCSE, there's quite a big coursework content. So we have a massive need for tutors that have got massive amount of patience, because they have to sit through literally reading through these coursework, these sort of handhold students to write their coursework is all I can say. I mean, just put your ethics and your morals to one side, because it is what it is. They can't access it on their own. So if you've got a student that's not fluent in English and they're trying to write this massive piece of coursework, Shakespeare means nothing to them, and the sort of subversive texts of Shakespeare, they're never going to get. So we do tend to handhold for those, yeah.
Okay, thank you.
Louise in the messages has said, thank you so much, Heather. A great insight into teaching and tuition in Dubai. Do you think teaching EAL online would be successful for the Dubai market? If so, do you have any tips how to reach parents in Dubai when my company is based in the UK? Thank you so much.
Yeah, we do. So we've currently, funny enough, we've just signed a contract with an EAL company in Spain. So a lot of students, so what's happened is that we've had this massive, massive growth of people moving into Dubai. That's Russians, Spanish, French, the French market. I have never known so many French to live in one country outside France ever. And what's happening is the schools are actually, they last year they took everyone, and this year they're saying, no, we want you to have a certain language level before we take you, because it's causing the teachers so much stress. I've got one teacher and he's literally got 3 English speakers in his class. The rest are speaking Russian, French, I don't know, whatever else. And he said, I can't communicate with my class. So what's happening now is this, the classes, the schools are saying, you must do an EAL course before you start. So if you want to have a chat with me about that outside, very happy to sign up with you. We actually work with a number of schools where they have to do their EAL through us, just because they are desperate. But it needs to be, we tend to, for school EAL, we tend to run a course which is about access to curriculum, as opposed to, where you go to buy a cup of tea and, it's like all the happy sort of phrases. It's very much driven towards curriculum and, what curriculum words would be. Does that answer it? It's
okay. Alice also in the chat has said, she's asked, is there a market for 11+ in Dubai for families looking to move back from the UK?
Yes. The easy answer to that is absolutely yes. So there's a couple of things. One is, I mentioned earlier, a school called Dubai College. Dubai College is selective. Every single parent in Dubai dreams that their child can get there. So what we tend to do is we do a lot of tutoring for Dubai College. The UK market, they're moving back to UK. There's a big market for doing 11+ for students moving back, and we work all summer just tutoring. Yeah, they massive.
Did you want to ask your second question, or would you like me to read it out?
Hi, thank you. Yeah, I'm happy to ask. Thank you for that. That's really useful. And your insight was great. Thank you. My other question was, I found that, looking at a lot of the kind of Dubai forums, there's quite strict rules and sort of, legislations around marketing or advertising your services, particularly if you don't live in the UK. So you can't generally put up your adverts for your tutoring services on there. I just wondered if you had any insight. I know you mentioned sort of mummy groups and things like that, but I just wondered if you had any further insight into that.
It's quite tough. So a lot of the groups are regulated by the government. So if they advertise something that's not licensed, they get heavily fined. So they are quite strict on it. The easiest way is usually to go into a chat, but obviously that means trawling very boring chats for something you don't know. The other way is obviously to work with a company that's already here that would just farm out. And as I say, we do that with a lot of people, and you build up your client base, and it works really well because we're as long as we know somebody wants to build up their market, we know they're going to give a good service. So we're paying, just out of interest, as a tutoring company, we pay £60 an hour to tutors. So we're not low. You're not being ripped off by working through an agency, and I know a lot of agencies do. We're very ethical. We've always said we're very ethical. We're very transparent. That's our key thing for clients and tutors. So for a lot of tutors, it's actually easier just to work through a company like us than it is to try and break the market, which it's tough. It's taken me 10 years. It literally is. And I worked for the ruler, and I worked with so many different people. I've been here for so long, and I've got 3 kids in lots of schools, and it's still taken me 10 years to actually go, do you know what? I think I've actually done it now.
Absolutely. Yeah, I totally agree. I think a few times I've just sort of thought, I've just given up on it, and just thought, I just don't know where to start or how to go about it. So that's good to hear that it took you 10 years. So thank you very much.
It's okay, and it's never a done deal, because so many you think you're there, and then so many move out in the summer. You're like, oh, for goodness sake, that's half my market gone again.
Absolutely, yeah. Nature of the beast, isn't it, as well? Thank you.
Okay.
Catherine has raised her hand.
Hello, hello.
Hi.
Hi. Hello to everyone. So I teach English as a foreign language, exam courses, lots of them actually, and French and German, GCSE. And I was just wondering, is the question about the resources, if schools are following a very particular curriculum, about using the resources, because they're usually only they only give the licenses usually to schools rather than independent tutors. You know, like the digital versions of the class books. And I was wondering whether the schools in Dubai, if they've subscribed to this, whether they can give us access to that information to use those resources.
Oh, I've no idea. I mean, I have to say, my EAL program grew out of nowhere, and I literally handed over to this company in Spain, and they manage it all for me. Only because I don't know anything about EAL. I literally know nothing.
Okay. All right. Because I do write my own material, but it would be useful to have access to the digital. They're so beautiful. The Pearson materials for French and German GCSE with the lovely pictures and so on.
Oh yeah, I don't know. I mean, we don't tend to. The schools tend to be very anti-tutors because it shows that they're not doing a good job. So we've had to work really hard to kind of connect with them, but we don't tend to share resources with them at all. Yeah, we work collaboratively with them to bring their students up to marks, and you know, and we for a lot of students that don't speak good English, we'll go and speak to the schools as though we're the guardian of the students, and because of that, they work with us because they have to. I don't know. I mean, I'm saying that we've been recently, a number of schools seem to have been a bit more like, oh well, if you do this for us, we'll do that. And whether that's just because we've broken the market, I don't know. But I don't know any other tutor companies that have that relationship.
I see. So do tutors tend to provide their own material? And
yeah, almost all of them do. Yeah.
Okay. All right. Thanks for the answer. I'm glad I asked.
I'm not sure that I'm very helpful because it's not my bag. Yeah, and kind of using online, it's not my bag. Sorry.
Okay. All right. Don't worry. Thank you.
Anyone else?
We have another question in the chat from Amar, which is, do you, so they say, I specialize in A-level politics and history. Do you have any insights on these subjects? What would parents be thinking when selecting a politics or history tutor for their A-level student? And typically, do parents seek out tutors themselves, or do they leave this to their children?
Gosh, generally parents do. So if they're British parents, it's almost always, if it's a UK family, the British parent would do it. Quite often, bizarrely, it's the father, only because I think it's that fear of phoning a company where you don't know whether you're going to get a British person speaking to you. And honestly, it is I can't describe how challenging it can be here. So generally, dad will send a WhatsApp and go, oh, I need a tutor. There's a lot of, so AQA politics, I'm just trying to think, we've got EdExcel. So Jumeirah College does a lot with the EdExcel politics. And I think that Desk is AQA. I think Desk is AQA at the moment. And we have a huge amount of need for that. It's relatively new. It's been running, I think politics has only been going about 3 years out here. I don't know how long it's been going in the UK. And we've seen massive growth, massive need for tutors. Students just aren't going to get it. They don't understand. There's no, you know, they're not going to watch the news here. They don't get access to British papers. You know, they really struggle to get to grips with that. So yeah, there's massive need. Probably, I guess, students through parents mainly. If it's a non-English speaking student, a non-English speaking family, the student would book it. We have quite a few of those from the Russians, but I can't imagine that Russian students would be taking history and politics, really. I'm not sure that would be quite so easy for them.
Thank you, Heather. Does anybody else have any questions?
No. I've bored you all. That's okay.
I highly doubt that.
If anyone, I think I put my number up. If anyone wants to WhatsApp me or send me an email, please do. And if you've got any questions, I'm delighted to ask them. I'll just see whether I can, oh gosh, shall I just drop it in the, let me see if I can drop it in the chat or, You see, I've now got to prove that I can't use a computer. Let me just drop that in the chat here. I'll give you my, if you've got any questions, send them to me. If you want to break into the market and you want some help, I'm very, very, very happy to help you do that. And I'll give you class slides.
So there's another question, Heather. So do you know of any directories where parents put out ads for tutors? So similarly to ARC.
Yeah, no, there isn't. It's sort of one of those random ones where they'll drop onto British Mums and ask for something, or they'll go onto the school. So what I've said before, and I'll say again, WhatsApp is the communication method. So every school group, I don't know whether it is in the UK or not, but every class has got a WhatsApp group. So what would happen if you want a tutor, you would just drop a message in your WhatsApp group and somebody would say, oh yeah, I know so-and-so, or so-and-so is recommended, and it will go that way. Facebook, WhatsApp, that would be about it, really. I don't know any book. We just use communication in a funny way in this country. Any other?
Can you see Catherine's question in the chat, Heather?
Oh, yes. Interesting. Yes, can I just say yes? And funny enough, that came through to me 2 days ago, somebody wanting Oxbridge, like urgently. So we've been working, I've been saying we work. So to move from here to university is obviously a massive decision for students here. One, because going to visit universities is quite tough, but two, because of home status. So they're not automatically going to get home status, even if they're a British family. I don't know if anyone knows that. So home status is only applicable to people who've lived in the UK for the last 3 years, which means that they pay foreign fees. So obviously trying to kind of talk to students about their university choices can be quite tough, and their view on job roles is very narrow. So we've worked for a bit. We have a careers advisor that works with us, looking internationally, not just looking sort of in the UK, and we also work loosely, and I'd say very loosely, with a company called UK, I can't remember what they are called now, UK something or other, and they're one of the bigger ones out here. But they've just put their prices up. So they used to be affordable. I would say they're now not affordable. And they support students through their UCAS application process, choice, career, and all the rest of it. But there's a massive need for really good university coordinators out here, like huge, and Oxbridge particularly. So Oxbridge has traditionally been done by a company called Bonus McFarlane. And like all companies, they go through a cycle, and I would say they're probably going through one of their down cycles as opposed to an up cycle. So there is massive need for Oxbridge support at the moment. Anyone? You're scared to ask any more in case I don't shut up, I know. Yes, Michaela, and we run study skills, and we are fully booked on study skills. Again, it's all those things that you get in school that they're not getting here. So all the soft skills, they're just not taught here. Anyone else? Yes, to early years, phonics and school readiness, there is some need, but I'm not sure they would work online. I don't know whether you already do online, but yes, school, so phonics is interesting because obviously if you've got international teachers, phonics that are taught with international languages is definitely interesting. So whenever I find a teacher that teaches perfectly English and they say they teach phonics, they're employed there and then, because they're rare, I have to say. School readiness classes, I don't know. Most children would probably do nursery and then transition to school. So they will already have done nursery for their year two to 3, and then 3 to 4, they'd start school. Zoom is definitely favoured, but we do also a lot of our teachers use Google Meet and is it Microsoft Class or whatever it is? I'm not sure, but yeah, Zoom's fine. We quite often use lesson space within our platforms. Yeah, they don't mind. They really don't mind. Anyone else?
Okay, if there are no more questions, thank you, Heather, so much for joining us today. I have found it really, really insightful and interesting to hear you speak, and I'm sure everybody else has really enjoyed it as well. For everybody still on the call, please do have a look at the Tutors Association summer sessions coming up. We're running a session almost every working day from now until the end of August. So there is so much going on, and we're just really trying to make the summer useful for kind of CPD and stock taking and general just brushing up on skills. So yes, thank you, Heather. Thank you so much.
Thank you. It was an absolute pleasure. Really, really, really enjoyed. Thank you so much.